Welcome everyone to this year's ELD Summer Academy. The intent of this presentation is for new teachers, new coordinators, just to kind of share what all the regulations and rules and reasoning for the things we do in Missouri. So we'll go ahead and get started. And we always start our meetings with our commitments to English learner success. And in today's, we're working on the 4, 5, and 6 effective, well-prepared, and culturally responsive educators with high standards for ELs and resources they need. So hopefully I can provide you with a few resources that you might need and some background into what we do today. So as I said, our what today is a better understanding of the guidance that prepares you for meeting the needs of English learners in the schools. And hopefully by the end of today, you'll be able to evaluate your school's understanding of recommendations and regulations regarding English learners in Missouri. There is a bit.ly there if you want to have the slides, which I am not going to go in depth in some of the links that I'm providing you. So please write down that bit.ly so that you can come back to these slides later. So I'll give you a few minutes to write that down if you want to. And I'm reusing some of the slides from 2022 and just updated them. So that's why it says 1 ELD Summer Academy 22. Just updated last year's presentation. So it's more current. We're good to go. Go on to the next slide. So I wanted to start by showing you this little video to let you know that we appreciate what you are doing or preparing to do in our schools. So if you'll indulge me for a little bit, let me make sure that optimize for a video clip there. Here we go.
An open letter to teachers. Dear teachers, recently my daughter started kindergarten. She came in knowing some letters, but that was about it. And now she's putting together entire words. She views language as a playground and reading as a chance to explore another world. I don't completely understand the science of phonics and blending and sight words, but you do. And miraculously, millions of kids learn to read every day. So, thank you. Thank you for loving students who are too scared to go to school, or who feel too shy or alone. Thank you for not believing the lie that there are good kids and bad kids. Thank you for seeing each child as a person and not a number. And for all the small battles you fight against the testing culture. I see your bravery and I admire it. Look, I've seen the radio interviews and TV segments, social media posts and magazine articles that blame teachers for everything from crime to economic collapse. But every time I walk into school early in the morning, I see teachers tutoring kids. I see teachers staying up late to give feedback on student work. I know that you spend hundreds of your own dollars on classroom supplies. I know that you have wept over the tragic stories of the kids you have grown to love. You are changing lives even when you can't see it. Thank you for finding ways to help kids fall in love with learning. Thank you for inspiring creativity and pushing critical thinking. I often ask people, who was someone who changed your life for the better? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is a teacher. You are making a difference every day. Sincerely, John.
So, oops, back to presentation. Come on. So I wanted to start with that just to say thank you for what you're doing and for what you're embarking on. With our English learners, they're often those ones who are those shy kids who don't speak or who felt left out. And so if you're going into the EL profession, especially, I appreciate you and you're going forward with that endeavor. So thank you.
An open letter to teachers. Dear
So we're going to start with a few introductions. So if you would like, we're a small group today. If you want to unmute and introduce yourself, let me find my list of participants here. We'll start with Andrea. Andrea, if you'd like to unmute and tell us where you're from and what you're teaching.
Good morning. It's good to be here. My name's Andrea, and I will be the English Language Learner Coordinator for Hollister Schools. I'm super excited. I've been teaching ESL for a really long time, mostly in Texas. And then the last couple of years I spent in Lead Hill, Arkansas, teaching special education. And this is just a great new adventure for me.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Welcome. Next on my list is Guadalupe. Guadalupe, you want to tell everyone who you are?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Guadalupe, and I'm one of the male representatives from the CSUM region in Kansas City. And thank you, Andrea. We need more people that has a little bit of a SPED background in our team that works with ELL students, so that they can help others and us just to differentiate between the both of them. So I'm here with just to help with Cami, and I know that there's somebody else here, Rhonda, that is also a male representative. And yes, please feel free to email us if you guys have any questions. Sometimes I know Cami has a lot of extra hats that she wears, so feel free to reach out to us as well. We'll be more than happy to help you out.
Thank you, Guadalupe. The next on my list is, Sia. I don't know if I said it right.
It's Isai Campos.
Welcome.
Hi, yes, and I am from Benton, Missouri. I am a first-time ELL, ESL teacher. I'm just now going into it, so I'm brand new, and I'm taking classes at SEMO. And then one new thing or surprising thing that you recently learned. Me.
Lost the end of you there. But thank you for introducing yourself.
I'm just excited to work with these students and get them to understand English properly and their necessities.
Thank you very much and welcome. Next on my list is Jennifer.
Yes.
Hello, I am Jennifer Ross. I teach in the Center School District in Kansas City. This will be my 16th year of teaching, but I've just spent all those years as a classroom teacher, just different grade levels. This is my first year as an ELL teacher. I think we're changing our name officially to multilingual learning teacher to be more encompassing, but I'm excited for the change and the challenge. I'm finishing up my program through Park University. So I'm just about done with that, a couple more classes, and then I'll have my TESOL certification. So just excited to apply my classroom knowledge and understanding of how it feels to be a regular teacher and try to work on like collaboration and co-teaching more as an ELL teacher.
Wonderful. Thank you and welcome. Rhonda, you're next on my list.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rhonda Hittenberger Ortiz. I work with Cami and Guadalupe as a male instructional specialist in the Southwest region. So if you are in the corner, kind of starting from Springfield and Southwest, or I don't even know if I have that right, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk with you personally, to come to your school, to just be a support for you as you're working with multilingual learners. So I'm really glad that you're here and so excited to see new faces that are just stepping into this world. You're going to love it.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhonda. The next person on my list is Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and I'm a new EL teacher there. So I'm really excited to join the team this year. And I got married about 2 weeks ago. So what I'm recently learning is a lot with my husband, and we're getting settled here in our new house. So lots of learning.
Wonderful. Welcome. And then Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Rutherford. I'm from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and this will be my 29th year of teaching, but my 6th year of teaching as an ML specialist. And I have been learning a lot over the summer, a lot more about science of reading and how I can advocate for my students with that. And I've learned a lot of new tools that I can use to help them with that transition. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Tracy. And Victoria.
Hello, I'm Victoria. I'm also from Cape Girardeau. It will be my 2nd year here. So excited because I will be starting working in high school as well and junior high. As Tracy just said, we are all learning about science of reading. I just completed my training in it, so it was quite new, and I learned a lot of things there that will or will not work for our students. So it was great to find out about that.
All right. Thank you so much, Victoria, and welcome. So one of the reasons I asked you to introduce yourself is because you are going to need some people to call on, rely on, and these people who are participating today are also new, most of them. And it gives you someone that you can remember and maybe reach back out to later on if you need someone to talk about or commiserate with or whatever. So let's go back to the presentation. We're going to start out by looking at kind of the history of English learners. Kind of started in 1954 with the Brown versus the Board of Education. That's when they officially said that we were no longer segregating schools. But even though that became a law, it didn't happen overnight. It took a long time for us to stop segregating our schools. In 1960, I'm sure you've all heard of Ruby Bridges and her being the first student in Louisiana to attend a non-segregated school was quite an ordeal for her. And if you haven't ever read that story, I would suggest that you go back and read about it. It was amazing what she went through. I'm not sure many of us would have the stamina to go to school every day in that situation. But anyway, not until 1964 with the Title VI Civil Rights Act did we really start ending segregation and having more equal rights for our students. And then Lau versus Nichols, hopefully you've heard of that, Castaneda, and then some other ones we're going to talk about here as we move through. So the first one, the Civil Rights Act, it led to this significant legal obligation. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act lays the foundation for prohibiting all aspects of discrimination. And it's been legally interpreted to protect English learners, who we used to call limited English learners. But that kind of was that negative connotation that was mentioned earlier. So it was changed to ELs. And while we're on that, the reason that our state documents will continue to say ELs is because that's how they are federally recognized. And so to be in compliant with federal documentation, we as a state have to use ELs on our formal documents. But that does not mean you cannot call them something else in your district, which you feel is more appropriate. So I'm with whoever that was that said a while ago that they're calling theirs multilingual learners. I think that's a great non-deficit look at their what we should label, how we should identify them. I don't like the word labeling either, but we'll go on with that. So the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, simple justice requires that public funds to which all taxpayers of all races contribute may not be spent in any fashion which encourages, entrenches, subsidizes, or results in racial discrimination. That came from John F. Kennedy in 1963. So they were trying to take it seriously that we treat others with respect and fairness and non-discrimination in our schools. So that was from our president. So that's kind of got things rolling. Then in 1974, we had the Equal Opportunities Act. It took a specific focus on education and mandates that educational institutions cannot deny equal education opportunity to their students. So everyone has to be treated equally is what this regulation told us, or this act told us. So it brought about this idea of fairness and equality. But that wasn't enough. So Lau versus Nichols was the next case that came into play. And what it said was that equal wasn't enough. It was brought against the San Francisco United School District by parents of nearly 1,800 Chinese students. It was the most important legal event for bilingual education. And it began as a discrimination case in 1970 when a poverty lawyer decided to represent a Chinese student who was failing school, mainly because he couldn't understand the lessons that were being presented in English, and he wasn't given any special assistance. So the school district said, you know what? We're doing what the law says, we're treating them equally. He's getting everything that everybody else is getting. And so the courts there locally said, you're doing what you need to do. We uphold what the school's doing. Well, the families didn't see that as being true, so they took it up to higher court. It went on to the Supreme Court, who heard the case in the same manner, and they decided unanimously in favor of the families and the students. And then we get this quote from Justice William O. Douglas, who said, there is no equality of treatment merely by providing students with the same facilities, textbooks, teachers, and curriculum. For students who don't understand English are being effectively foreclosed from any meaningful education. So we utilize, there's that quote, we utilize this quote and this message in our schools today. The bottom line is that all districts in the country must provide ELs with meaningful access to education in a language that's understood. And typically this requirement is met through native language support or bilingual programs. The next case that took this into account was that Castaneda versus Pickard in 1981. And what that case did was established the three Castaneda points that we utilize today, and that they're kind of the backbone of English language learner education. And they have these 3 points at the bottom: that it must be based on sound educational theory, that it must be implemented effectively with resources for personnel, instructional materials, and space. And after a trial period, it has to be proven effective in overcoming language barriers and handicaps. So those 3 prongs of this ruling led to how we utilize English language learner instruction today. After those major cases, we had an enforcement policy in 1991 from the Office of Civil Rights. And what it said is that it took those three prongs a little further and said the EL teachers have to be adequately trained and evaluated by someone who's familiar with how you teach English learners. It can't be just the same evaluation you use for every other teacher. We have to establish an exit criteria with objectives. We have to eliminate the policies that say that students can't have double services. We have to allow them to do enrichment and gifted and special education. All of those things need to be available to our students. So that came from this enforcement policy of 1991. And then this update on the national origin minority students with limited English proficiency was added on, and it had formally adopted those three prongs of the Castaneda versus Pickard. The next thing was No Child Left Behind, and then ESSA, and that's where we are today. And I've kind of highlighted here the main things. The first one is develop high levels of academic achievement. So no more poor baby, we'll let you off. You can go sit in the corner and do a color sheet. We expect the same rigor and achievement from our English learners. The second thing is that they need to achieve high levels in academic subjects. They can meet the same standards. They should be assessed the same, and we have to find ways to get them there. The third thing is to establish, implement, and sustain effective language instructional programs. So whatever program best fits your needs should be the one that you adopt. The fourth ruling was that you need to provide an effective instructional program to prepare your English learners. So we have a list of those that we utilize. And the fifth thing was to promote parent, family, and community participation in our EL programs. So a lot of them left parents out. So now we're asking for their input as well. These legal obligations come from the Office of Civil Rights and the Department of Justice. They share joint authority on enforcing them. They issued a joint guidance in 2015 that is the Dear Colleagues letter that you might have heard about. And the Dear Colleagues letter identified 10 common civil rights issues for English learners, and that's kind of where we're headed here. So when we speak about rules and regulations that we use here in Missouri, we're referencing these documents that I've just shared with you. So they're the basis of everything that we do in Missouri. In order to have regulation, we have to write things into law as Missouri. So Missouri has adopted the federal regulations as their guidance. Okay. So those 10 common civil rights issues for English learners are listed here. The first one is that we have to identify and assess students in a timely, valid, and reliable manner every year. The second, we have to provide a language assistance program that's educationally sound. The third, we have to provide sufficient staff and support for English learners. The fourth, we have to provide them equal opportunities in all curricular and extracurricular activities. The fifth, we avoid unnecessary segregation, and that can mean transferring students from one school to another, not keeping them in their home school. That's one of the big ones that OCR has been investigating frequently in our states. The sixth one is making sure that students with disabilities are also evaluated in a timely manner and appropriately. Some people are under the misinformation that you wait 3 years or you wait a certain amount of time. That is not true. As soon as you see a need, you need to evaluate those students and make sure that we're meeting their needs. The seventh thing, they provide guidance on students whose parents wish for them to opt out of services. The 8th is that we exit them based on criteria when they're proficient in English. The 9th is we evaluate the effectiveness of our programs within our schools. And the 10th is that meaningful communication with parents. And so we have a document that helps us to understand all of this and helps us to implement them in our schools, kind of our guidebook as we work with English learners. I provided the link to that tool here, and it was recently updated with more current guidance. I think it was 2018, 2019, they added some little information boxes with updates that you'll find. So they go over those 10 ideas that I shared with you just a moment ago. And this is what it looks like. So it's divided by chapter. The first chapter is those tools and resources for identifying English learners. And they give you the key points. So in chapter 1, they're going to be looking at how you must identify them in a timely manner with a home language survey. And it has to be administered consistently, effectively, so that you ensure accurate results. So in Missouri, what we have done is we created what we call our language use survey. And this needs to be given to all students when they enroll in school. It is a regulation by the Office of Civil Rights. And mainly what you have to do is answer the first 3 questions. Those are what's required of everyone. But to give you a better picture of English learners, we've added several other questions to our language use survey. If the answer to any of these first 3 questions is yes, then that student is identified as a potential English language learner. And then you have to take steps to determine if they qualify for your EL program. So to properly identify the students, the EL teacher will review the language use survey and identify those potential English learners. They will notify the classroom teacher after the screener. They will add, if they qualify, they will add them to the school's database and create that language support or academic plan for the student, and change the student's status in the reporting program as to an English learner. If they don't qualify, you also notify the classroom teacher that the student's been identified and make a notation on the language use survey and put it in the student's permanent file. Somehow document that you have assessed them so that they know that they have been assessed and evaluated. And one thing I want to note here is the language use survey is just a tool to identify potential English learners. It's not the identifier itself. A parent interview is very helpful after that language use survey is completed to determine if they need to be screened. For example, if you had a student whose grandparents live in the home and speak another language, but the student hasn't learned the language and they aren't directly influenced by the language the grandparents speak, then that wouldn't have an effect on the student's learning, and that student might not need to be screened. So there are several things that you take into consideration. But again, the language use survey is just that initial tool for identifying potential English learners. Okay. So here's what the language use survey looks like. It starts with the student's name, the school, and the person filling it out, what grade they are in, and it's dated. And these are those first 3 questions I said are the most important. I know several school districts have gone to all digital, and so they put these 3 questions on their digital enrollment page. But if they answer any of these 3 questions as yes, then someone should follow up with the remainder of the language use survey to determine if the student actually does need services or not and warrants that screening. So the next page goes a little deeper into educational history, how many years they've been in a school where the native language was used for instruction, most recent time they were in school, which is very important for us to know if they've been out of school for a while, so we kind of can plan how to place them. And then it asks questions about the preferred language for talking with parents and contacting parents. So these questions are all very important when we're identifying our English learners. The second chapter in the toolkit is about tools and resources for providing them with a program. So it goes into what kind of programs that you're offering in your school district and whether they're designed to help the students achieve in a reasonable length of time. If they offer the programs until the students are proficient, and if they're taking into consideration the special needs students. So they're intended to help schools and the district and the state provide them with appropriate assistance. And you might hear it called an LIEP. That stands for Language Instruction Educational Program. And I'll help you here in a minute to identify what those are. There are 4 tools in this chapter. Tool 1 are guiding questions to learn about your EL population. The second tool is something to check on long-term English learners and how you can meet their needs. Third tool are research-based considerations. And then the fourth is an EL program chart, which is kind of what I was going to share next. In Missouri, these are the program models that we identify. They could be sheltered, resource, a newcomer center. You could use co-teaching or coaching, an ELD content course, structured EL immersion or English immersion, content-based instruction, pull-out ESL, and bilingual instruction. The majority of the schools in Missouri do still use pull-out instruction or content-based instruction. Some have at the upper levels, the ELD content courses. And we're seeing a few more co-teaching and coaching models, which is why we kind of eliminated the suggested minutes of instruction. We don't require a certain number of minutes for students to be seen because in some cases, the teachers are working directly with the classroom teachers, the ELD teachers, and the classroom teachers are collaborating. All right, chapter 3 is about resources for staffing and supporting the learning. These key points that the ELA must provide the personnel necessary. And if we follow federal guidance, that's as soon as you have one ESL student, you need to find a person who is able to meet their needs. The necessary personnel includes teachers who are qualified to provide EL services, excuse me, or content teachers who are qualified in their field and trained to support ELs, and trained administrators who can evaluate both groups of teachers. The ELA must also provide professional development and follow-up training for those who are working with English learners, and make sure that the administrators who evaluate them are adequately trained as well. So basically, you have to have trained staff to work with your English learners, and that's a federal requirement. So ELLs are obligated to provide resources also necessary to implement their programs. So you should have some sort of text or some sort of materials that you can use to help the students learn as well. And those are required. So professional development, there's a whole tool on that for English ELD teachers, as well as one for teachers of general education. Tool 3 is meeting the needs of English learners. It gives a list of essential knowledge necessary. And tool 4 is a framework for supporting classroom teaching of English learners. It gives indicators and examples on how to work with English learners in the classroom. So here are some questions that the district should keep in mind when they're looking at their program. Do all EL program core content and special ed teachers who instruct ELs have the appropriate certification, licensure, or training to work with ELs? If not, are they working to get those credentials? And we as a state make sure that we monitor whether those teachers are qualified to work with English learners. That's one of the questions that we look at annually. And do all EL teachers demonstrate the necessary skills to implement the EL program in your district? Does the ELA or state provide supplemental professional development? And we do. Do all EL programs, core content, and special ed teachers who teach students with disabilities receive this professional development? So those are things we question and we look at when we evaluate your district. Are they staffed with adequately trained, qualified ESL, bilingual, core content, and special ed teachers to meet the students' needs? And are the principals and administrative staff able to evaluate the program? And also, are paraprofessionals adequately trained? Because that does not also often occur. They need to be going to professional development as well. And then as far as adequate resources, do they provide sufficient and appropriate materials at all levels of English language proficiency in all grade levels, and each separate program for students who speak different languages? And do they provide resources that are challenging and rigorous and aligned to the state content standards? So as a state, we know that there's a major opportunity gap for our English learners because our teachers are not prepared to work with them. We love our students as EL teachers, but they are not always in our classroom. Many times you only see them 30 to 60 minutes a day or 2 or 3 times a week. So our job is to figure out how to better manage how we can communicate to the classroom teachers who are with them most of the time. When they are in the regular classroom, sometimes we see them shutting down. We want them to be successful in all situations. That's the job of our EL specialist, is to create those entry points into collaboration with the classroom teachers and prepare them for this work. The quest for equitable schooling for ELs is something that is going to require collaboration. That's what our students deserve. So our EL teachers are like the ambassadors for the EL students. It has to be intentional, not simply by default. And we have to find other educators who work with ELs who don't necessarily have that skill set that we do and help them to understand how to work with them. And we always say that the content teacher knows the content, but we know how to teach the language. And we need to scaffold and accommodate to meet their needs. All right. So here's kind of an example of what I see in many school districts as I've gone across the state. Our caseload for ELs regulation at the state and federal level says that the ratio of EL teachers to students should mirror the rest of the district's classrooms. In Missouri, that ratio is pretty much 17:1. So in a given classroom, it should be 17:1 when working with the students. So our EL teachers have to look at ELD standards, grade level standards, proficiency level, and then multiply that times the number of grades they serve. Most of the ELD teachers that I've looked at across the state have about 56 students average on their caseload. And these are students coming from several different classrooms. So my example here is maybe 15 classrooms, 3 grade levels, 3 classes at each grade level in an elementary school. So this kind of gives you an idea of what it might look like in those classrooms. For example, if you have 12 kindergarten students, that doesn't mean they're all just 12 kindergarten students. You might have 4 who are beginners at level 1 proficiency, 3 that are at level 2, and 5 that are level 4s. So there's a lot of discrepancy. And our job is to look at the individual child. So when you have a caseload like this, it's a lot of work. The ELD teacher has to be aware of the content and the language and the grade level and the English language proficiency level. And they try to group the students into periods with English language proficiency levels that are similar so that they can instruct the students in small groups while still trying to adhere to those classroom teacher schedules and coordinating the instruction so it fits in with the goals of the classroom and also their language proficiency plans. And in addition to that, they have paperwork requirements for perm files and state reporting. They have to test new students when they arrive. They have to benchmark to make sure they're assessing their IAP goals, their language goals. They have their annual language assessment for access. There are parent contact requirements that are a regulation, and there's a link here to that regulation. They also, if they're able, are sometimes interpreters or translators when we're working with parents and get called to the office to help out with that. And they're instructional leaders to support and coach professional practices in their district. So it's a big job. I don't want to scare you off, but it's a big job. As far as paperwork that's required in the student's portfolio or their student's file, should be a copy of their WIDA access or screener scores, any notes from teachers or parents, their updated academic plan, the notification of services and program description that you send out to parents, portfolio evidence when they get to a 3.5 to make sure that they could exit at the appropriate time. When they do exit, a copy of their exit letter with their scores. If they opt out of services, a letter of waiving or refusing services needs to be included. And at the bottom here, I've given you an example of the data file that I used when I was in the classroom to help set all of this up and keep the paperwork organized, if that's helpful. Also, in the permanent files, should be a copy of the individual academic plan and updates when those are made, their current screener and WIDA access scores, an exit letter when they do, and that letter of waiving or refusing services if it happens. So that's a lot in that chapter of the book. And that's kind of the bulk of where we get involved with working with schools. Chapter 4 is about providing learners with access to curricular and extracurricular programs. So basically, anything that is offered to the mainstream classroom should be offered also to our English learners. And just released from OCR is this ensuring meaningful participation in advanced coursework and special programs. So this was released just this last week. I've provided the link there so you can go learn more about how we can ensure that our English learners are included in all of these other opportunities. So I invite you to check that out. The key points from chapter 4 is that we can't exclude students from GATE programs and other honors and things just because of the language difference. We have to ensure that evaluation and testing for these programs is appropriate for them and monitor the extent to which they're included. So we need to be aware for those gifted and talented programs. There's some tools for data collection from OCR, some 6 principles for teaching English learners, how to get them college and career ready, and how to serve gifted students. So each of these are spelled out in those chapters so that you can go back and gain more information. Then chapter 5 are tools and resources for creating an inclusive environment and avoiding segregation. And it gives you ideas on how you really shouldn't be isolating them or putting them in different areas. They shouldn't be in EL only classes for periods longer or shorter than required by their proficiency level. And while they're receiving EL instruction or bilingual services, it would be rarely justifiable to segregate them from their non-EL peers in things like physical ed, art, music, and other activities outside the classroom. So there are guidance and information. There's a diversity assessment for self-assessment for your school, resources addressing bullying and harassment of ELs, and some sample self-monitoring aids to help your school. Then chapter 6 are tools and resources for addressing learners with disabilities, and it goes into all of the ways that we ensure that they're getting the quality of instruction that is necessary and who should be working with them. And again, we have 5 tools, how you refer, identify, and assess students with disabilities. Considering the influence of language difference and disability on their learning behavior, developing their IEP, how to use data from the Office of Civil Rights for collection, and selecting appropriate accommodations for students with disabilities. So those are all there in that chapter for you. And then chapter 7 is talking about those students whose parents want them to opt out of the program. One thing I want to bring out on this chapter is even if a parent opts a student out of the program, we are still required to provide them services. And the student is still required to be assessed annually until they formally exit the program. So just because the parents don't want them in the type of program that you're offering does not mean that you don't offer anything to the students. You have to find a way to work with the classroom teacher to provide their needs. So tool number 1 is that requirement of that parent notification letter and giving them their right to opt out. Tool 2 is a sample English Learner Program opt-out notification that you can use. And tool 3 is that notification to opt a child back into the program. So if they're assessed every year and they're not making progress, that gives you a good in with parents to say, hey, your child's been in the regular classroom, they're not making progress. We really need to pull them back in and offer them some extra assistance to help them. So that gives you an idea in that tool 3 on how you can do that. All right, chapter 8 is about monitoring and exiting. We have to have as a state, we have to set an exit score. And in Missouri, that's a 4.7 on the access test as their overall score. But we also offer portfolio assessments, and if they meet certain benchmarks, or you've gathered enough evidence to show that they are progressing as well as students in the regular classroom, you can use that evidence to exit them along with their access score. And this kind of gives you a little bit of assistance with that. So number 1 is monitoring their progress in language proficiency. Tool 2 is monitoring their progress in the core content areas. Tool 3 is digital progress monitoring. And tool 4 are plans for self-assessment for the students. These are all, again, from the Office of Civil Rights, and will help you with students who are ready to exit the program or who have already exited the program. We monitor them for 2 years after exiting. And within those 2 years, if they're struggling with language, we can always pull them back into the ESL program. All right, chapter 9 are tools and resources for evaluating your district's ESL program. So the key points here are they have to enable students to obtain both English proficiency and the instructional standards within a reasonable period of time. They should collect data to monitor and compare current, former, and never English learners. And when programs don't produce both English proficiency and access of goals within a reasonable time, then there are measures that we put in place for modifying the ELD program for some program improvement. 4 tools are available for that: evaluating your program and services tool, improving our state system to support all students' information, improving your district system, and then improving the school system. So there are some tools available for evaluating your program. So I always like this statement, and my grandpa used to say this all the time: if something's not working, you got to let go of the doorknob so that the door of opportunity can open up. If you're hanging on to the doorknob, doing the things that you've always been doing, not making changes, you're not opening that door to opportunity. So you got to let go of the doorknob sometimes. All right, chapter 10 is about ensuring communication with parents. And this is also a federal requirement that things be provided to parents in a language that they can understand. They need to know about any program, service, or activity that's getting attention of the non-ELP or non-language learner families. If it's available to them, it also needs to be available to our English learners. The districts must have a process in place to identify the parents who need things that are translated, and they have to provide those translation or interpretations in a free and effective way for our parents at no cost to them. And there needs to be signage at your front office that says that that they have the right to an interpreter or a translator, and provide a way to access that. Okay. So there are 4 tools in this chapter as well. One is establishing family and school partnerships, tapping into the strengths of your families and communities, getting them involved and engaged with the school so that they can help you with that. One thing that when I was in the district, I taught ESL in a school district for over 20 years. And one thing that we found was we identified a pastor at a church that could work with our Pacific Island students. And he was fluent in several languages. And he advocated for us nonstop and made sure that the parents attended our meetings. He provided us with translators, bilingual persons in his congregation, was a wonderful advocate for our schools and for the parents and their students. So finding people like that through tapping into your community is a wonderful tool. And then school leaders and the school leaders and engaging families of ELs, some strategies for school leaders to help integrate the EL's culture into your schools. And then some interpretation and translation resources are available there that are available through the federal government. They also have a fact sheet on the responsibilities of districts, the fact sheet that answers common questions about the rights of parents, and translations into multiple languages through this link on their EdGov page. There's also a companion toolkit from the Office of English Language Acquisition that you can go there, the EL toolkit. And our DESE ELD webpage has some resources as well, and you can get to that there. In addition, they have a brand new newcomer toolkit that you can access through this link, and it's specific to brand new English learners to your district or to our country. It gives a definition of what a newcomer is. gives some ideas for parent and family engagement. It even discusses remote learning and how to engage students through remote learning. And it gives you over 100 hyperlinks to federal department and peer referenced resources to support newcomers and their families and their educators. So this is brand new, just out in the last few months. I wanted to provide that so you can go back and look at that. And then as far as professional development for our state, and that was one of the requirements. I said that DESE does help with that. We have on the DESE calendar, and I was going to show you that and how to get to it real quick. So if you log on to, let's go to the beginning here so I can kind of help you there to get to it. So if you go to the DESE main page, which is dese.mo.gov, you'll see just this general page about DESE. If you look at educators and click on that, you're going to get a listing of educator resources. We want to click on curriculum. And that brings up our curriculum main page. At the bottom of this page, you're going to find a calendar. And this calendar shows you any professional development that our office has available current each month. So you're going to see this is our Summer Academy for this year. You can click on those links, and usually it will say register here. Sometimes there will be a registration box there that you can register right through the calendar. But as you scroll through the days or the months, you can find, do it by month. You can find things in different content areas that are available. There we go. This one's the month. Anyway, if you scroll through, there's nothing much on the calendar right now. And there we go. There was something. We have interface that's coming up. So again, if you click on them, a lot of times it's going to give you a link to where you can go, and then you can sign up through the calendar. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And then also on the right-hand side, there is a listing of all of our content areas. And if you click on English language development, it will take you to our ELD webpage. And there is a professional development link there as well. This ELD check-in hub will get you to our the hub page, which allows you to sign up for professional development. It says, please register here. And that takes you to the Zoom registration. With our ELD hub, they go all the way back to 2019. So if you're bored and want some free professional development, you can go back all the way to our 2019. And they are every month of the school year, except for we don't do a presentation in July or December at Christmas time. But you can go back and watch the old recordings and get the materials that goes with that, or sign up for the new offerings for next year. There are also some WIDA e-learning workshops, and I'm going to go back to this, that WIDA self-paced e-learning workshops are available to any educator in Missouri. And you sign up for those through the WIDA webpage. I don't think I have there's a flyer for what's offered this year, but I don't have the link here. I'll have to add that for this year. You sign up through that through the secure portal for WIDA. There are some letters here to ask your principals or administrator for permission to help with that. But again, that's available to any educator in Missouri, classroom teachers, administrators, ELD teachers. They're a wonderful resource of EL learning, and they're self-paced, and they last all the way from August through September of the next year, or September through August of the next year, I'm sorry. We also have an ELD newsletter that gives you ideas of what's going on in our state and with our male support staff, things that they're offering in their areas. And this page also gives you a link to your male specialist in your region and tells you which regions are covered by them. So there are lots of things on the ELD webpage to help you out. Each one of these tabs gives you more information, like on identification and enrollment, with links and resources for you. So we've got one on identification, one on instruction, one on exiting or reclassifying, links for families, a whole page on ELs with disabilities, and then some additional resources. And if you want to coordinate with your world language teacher, there's also some information on world languages. And then at the top, there is a link to the Missouri Seal of Biliteracy, which we encourage all of our ELs to work towards earning the Seal of Biliteracy. There is a EL listserv that I encourage you to subscribe to that keeps you up to date on what's going on in Missouri as far as changes or developments, testing dates and deadlines. So those all come out through the listserv. So I encourage you to sign up for that. There's also a curriculum listserv where you can get information about things happening in other content areas. This is on just remote teaching. That was developed back in COVID time, but there are great resources still available there. This link takes you just to assessment, where you can find out more about the screener and the access assessment, where to look at the training, some of the manuals, all of those things are available there. And then the EL administrative is that compliance information. So you can find out about evaluating your program. And then this link takes you to the ELD standards through WIDA. And I also wanted to point out these three things here. We have a Missouri Blueprint for English Learner Success. That's what I shared at the very beginning of the presentation. And it breaks it down by state obligations, district obligations, school obligations, and teacher obligations. So that's something to look at. And then if you ever have questions, we have Missouri ELD frequently asked questions document there. It's a great place to start. If you have something that you're just stumped on, and look there first and see if we've answered that. Because what we've done is, the years have gone, anytime a question comes through my office several times, we add it to the list so that everyone might get that information. And this bottom one is a map that was created in collaboration with a person who was working on their doctorate. And it tells you the percentage of student population, EL population within the student population of every district in Missouri. So if you're looking for another district who has a like number of students or like population, it's a good tool to use to get that information if you want to reach out to someone. All right, so I talked about how to sign up for the DESE calendar. Our ELD check-ins are on the fourth Monday of every month. They start at 3:45. It's okay if you pop in as soon as you're available. They're all recorded and available on that hub that I shared with you. And again, no meetings in December or July. We also have the Federal Programs Conference. This year it's November 13th and 14th. It's always at Tantera Resort. And we have ELD teachers presenting, as well as state members presenting there on all Title III guidance and EL information. I already talked about the self-paced e-learning. This is a document I created for new EL coordinators and teachers, because we can't cover everything and can't remember everything from this at one time. And go ahead and click there. It provides a link to the ELD webpage that I just looked at with you. It gives you a link to the assessment page, the administrative page, ideas on how you create and maintain an EL program. And then this section is links to WIDA, how to get signed up for WIDA, and how to access all the information that's available through there. If you click on that, it takes you to a separate page. This is our check-in hub link again, how to sign up for the listserv. This was a document on with lots of resources to federal parent resources, reading resources, content area resources specific to English learners. We have a LinkedIn page. This will take you there where you can sign up. Again, there's our newsletter. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, and those give you access to that. And then these are some more professional development resources, and then other additional resources that new teachers or new administrators might find helpful. So that link is also available for you. This new ELD and coordinators teachers page. And this last one is from a presentation that we did last year that I wanted to offer to you. I'm not going to go over everything in it, but it gives you access to knowing about your district and your school. Again, this was all how to get to the ELD page. Sorry for scrolling quickly. This one is how to get to your demographics of your school district. So you can go to the data dashboard and pick your district, look at your number. When you get to your district, it pulls up a page that's specific to your school's numbers. It will tell you the number of students in your district. If you click on that, it opens another page where you can click on additional demographics, and then it breaks down your EL information there. So that I wanted to make sure you were aware and had access to. This next one, if you want to know how much money is in your school district, this will give you information step by step on how to find out how much money is available to you through your title funding, if you're a title school, and get title allocations. And then the last thing that's in here that I wanted to make you aware of is we have a DESE digital library that is mainly for English language development teachers. And it has educational publications that you can check out and utilize. We have a large variety of resources for teachers. And it's just like any other digital lending library. You can check out a copy of it. You can even annotate within the book. And I think you can borrow it for several weeks, but your annotations and any notes that you take remain on your in your account, so you can go back to them again later on. And Guadalupe, who's on here, manages that for us. You can contact her and get access. A lot of times it's just putting in your school email address to get access to the account, and it's through Sora. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that resource as well. And that's through, all of that's available through this link here. And Guadalupe, as I said, is in Kansas City. We have recently had a change in our region 2, and I don't have that name yet, but that will be posted soon. Rob Greenhaw is in St. Louis. Rhonda, who's on the call today, is from the Springfield area. And then we have Julianne Field from Cape Girardeau, who is also a wonderful resource. All right, I talked a whole lot, so I am going to stop now and let you kind of ask any questions that brought to mind or anything that's just burning and that you need to get out. So I am going to stop talking and let you ask questions. Don't be shy.
Hi there. I would really like to access and peruse the book, the English Learner Toolkit, that whole book after, and go over it again. Would I just click on it from your presentation, or I just
Yes.
your bit.ly and then it'll click, if I click on the link, it'll bring me to the book?
Yes, it certainly will. And you could do a book study with it. It gives you the whole document. And like I said, I could have gone into each area, but it's very extensive and very in depth. And there's so many things that they take you links to other places. So yes, please do go back and look at that. And I just gave you the overview of what the document shares with you.
That would be great. Thank you.
My pleasure. Anything else? I want you to know that I am always available. You can email me at any time. You can contact our mail specialist at any time. And we're happy to help any question that comes up, any struggle that you're facing. Probably has been faced before, and we can help walk you through that. So don't hesitate. And there is a link here to an evaluation. If you would please, whoops, let me quit present mode and I can copy that. It's hard to copy when you're presenting, but I'll put that in here if you would. My bosses like to know that I do a good job too. And there is my content information. I'm going to copy my email. Well, I'll copy my phone number and my email and put that in there. So you'll have it as well. And I'm going to stop sharing now. There we are. Oh, I hope I didn't overwhelm you too much. I know that was a lot of information, but there is so much, there's so much in EL education that many people aren't aware of what's expected and what it's involved in it. But thank you for embarking in this endeavor with us. And I hope to keep you with us for several years. One thing I was going to mention when I was discussing EL teachers is when I was in the district, I said I was there for over 20 years working with English learners, and finally they made me the coordinator for our district. I saw so many EL educators come and go that it was disheartening, and they don't realize how hard this job can be, but it takes really dedicated people, and I appreciate you. I wish you the best. If there are no other questions, then we can go ahead and end our conversation today. Again, anytime you need something, please reach out to me or our mail specialist. We're here to help you. And I thank you for coming.
Thanks, Cami.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.